Last week and a half, let me just give you a run through of everything that has happened. I got into an accident and I thank the Lord, okay? I caught a cold. So I have had this excruciating pain on my right side. I dropped a few balls at work this week as well. Crowning moments, guys. I flunked an interview. Hello, my loves. It is very late in the night. It is 5 minutes to 12. Yes, midnight, and I am still awake. I had a nap earlier in the day, like towards this evening, and so my eyes are still shining like a torch. Yes. Anyways, welcome guys. My name is Chioma for anyone who is new on here. And I think this is the best time to talk about your failures as a human being when everyone else is sleeping and nobody is eavesdropping. Don't mind me. My energy is up now because things have improved, but this past week has been a bit of a nightmare, okay? Well, if I say this past week, I don't think that's completely true because it's not been only this past week. I feel like the past week was just a continuation of what has been a crazy few weeks. Since the start of February, actually, life has just been going bam, 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 bam. One thing after the other, just throwing those balls at me in such quick succession. I have dropped a few of those balls. Yes. So in today's video, I just want to talk about some of those struggles I have had. Now, some of you have asked me questions in the past about how I cope as a social worker, how I manage my emotional, psychological, even physical well-being as a social worker. How do I cope with the high stress environment of being a social worker, especially in the field of practice that I work in, okay? Domestic violence, sexual violence, and things like that. Yeah, how do I cope? Now this video is going to be, I don't know if this video is going to address everything about how I cope. I'm going to tell you those things, those struggles that I have had in the past fortnight. Some of them are personal, some of them are work related, and then I'll tell you how I have coped. Okay, let me have another drink of water. It's really important at this point. Great. So let me give you a bit of a backstory. This past week, okay, or in the past week and a half, several things have happened. You know how was it in my last video or 2 videos ago, I talked about what I was doing in February. I talked about my daughter falling sick with COVID, and then the other daughter falling sick, not COVID related, soon after the COVID sick daughter got well, right? The second person got sick and I had to keep her at home for another 3 days. Now, what I did not mention in that video was that when the other daughter fell sick, it was the worst timing ever because I had booked leave for that week. For those days in particular that she fell sick and I was called from the school to pick her up, I had booked leave for those days. So you can imagine I was looking forward to having some me time, looking forward to having some rest and recharging, and then that happened. So technically, I did not rest. Okay, the 2 days that I was going to just relax and kick back and do my own thing, I was looking after a sick child. In the past week and a half, let me just give you a run through of everything that has happened. I got into an accident, and this is not in any particular order. It is just what I remember. I got into an accident. It was on a very wet morning, and this learner driver decided it was a great idea to stop bang in the middle of the road in rush hour traffic, like people rushing to catch their train, people rushing to get to work, people rushing to drop their kids off on a wet morning. You can guess what happened after that. The car behind it smashed into it. I smashed into the car in front of me, and then the one behind me fortunately didn't ram into me. Okay, they came really close to ramming into me, but somehow they were able to avoid it. Yeah, so that was it. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. And the worst that happened in that accident was a tiny little crack on my own bumper and a tiny little scratch on the car in front of me. That was the worst that happened in that accident. So I thank the Lord. Okay, that was number one. And then number two, the temperature dropped. Okay, it felt so much like winter. And that is a bad thing for me. That's not a positive for me. I do not like the cold for any reason. I just don't like cold weather. When it comes around this time, when the weather starts cooling down and we're actively running towards winter, it affects me. Even my mood changes. A lot of things about me change. By the way, guys, today is a Sunday and the clocks actually changed today. So daylight savings is officially over. The warm months, as far as I'm concerned, they are officially done and dusted. Summer is now a distant memory. We're looking at winter in about a month and a half. Yeah, and I feel like this past week has felt very much like winter. Temperatures dropped, it was wet and cold, and then on top of that, there was an evil wind that just kept blowing and blowing. And I feel like I might have caught a nasty cold because I got rained on twice this past week. I had to commute into work 3 days last week, which was not fun, which, you know me, I have communicated this so many times on this channel. If I had my way, I would never ever step foot in an office again. I would never ever step foot to work from an office again. I love working from home, okay? But that was not to be, so I went in 3 days a week and then that happened. And I feel like off the back of that experience, I caught a cold. So I have had this excruciating pain on my right side. By Saturday evening, I was in a lot of pain. I couldn't sit straight. I had to sit leaning this way. And I could only lie down on one side throughout the night. And as you would already know, that didn't make for a very great sleep, right? Today is Sunday. Thankfully, the day started off really rough. The pain was still there. It was really difficult to go about my day with that pain, but I did manage. And then this evening, I can still feel it there, but at least I can breathe easy, okay? And I can move around a lot more than I could do earlier today and even yesterday. So I think it is going down. But I felt like I caught a cold. I've tested for COVID and it's negative. Work. Let's talk about work. Let's talk about work. I dropped a few balls at work this week as well. Yes, and I'm going to tell you all about it. And then, crowning moments, guys. I flunked an interview. Yes. I flunked an interview this week or last week because this is the start of a new week. But yeah, that's it. That's what has been happening. By way of an update, I've just given you a run through in a few minutes what has been happening for a few weeks now. Okay, so let's talk about work for a moment. I said I dropped the ball. So what actually happened? So I misnamed 2 of my students. And you might think that that's not a big deal, but as a social worker, someone who understands the importance of building rapport in a therapeutic relationship, remembering their names is important. Remembering their story is important. One of those occasions was where the student had come to meet me for the very first time. We had exchanged a few emails prior just to establish a time when the both of us could meet. And so this student decided to come see me in person in the office because I was working in the office. And so they came and Chioma went in there and put her foot in her mouth. So what did I do? Let's just say this client's name is Jane. I went out there and I called them Julie. Yeah. Thankfully on this occasion, she was a good sport about it because I caught myself immediately. I'm like, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? I am so sorry that I called you Julie instead of Jane. Okay, I am so sorry. And she was like, that's all right. You know, she gave a bit of a chuckle and that was it. But the second student did not find it funny. And this is not me criticizing their reaction. They have every right to feel the way they felt. And especially because with this particular student, let's just say that her experience with the system had not been good previously, and then to have someone that she had only just started working with and was still trying to build a rapport with misname her, obviously it was inexcusable as far as the student is concerned. So what actually happened in this case was that I sent off an email to this student, and by the way, we had been exchanging emails before that and everything was fine. I never misnamed her until this particular email. I don't know what came over me, but I called her by the wrong name. Okay, it was part of her names. Okay, I called her by one of her names, okay, but not her preferred name. I made a mental note to myself to send an apology to her because there were other things I needed to attend to urgently. I was going into a meeting, okay? I was about to go into a meeting when I saw that I had made this error. And so I made a mental note to myself that as soon as I got out of the meeting, I was going to send her an email apology, right? But unfortunately, it was while I was in that meeting that she called my manager and reported me to the manager, and just mentioned that she didn't feel like it was a great start to our relationship, that I didn't even remember her name and I addressed her by not her preferred name. Anyway, so when I came out, my manager had a chat to me about it and I felt so bad. But I still went ahead and I typed that email to her. But you know what, guys? When it rains, it pours, as they say. So I was trying to make a bad situation better and I just made it worse. So when I went to type that apology email to her, I sent off that email only to realize immediately after that I had addressed that email to myself and copied her in. If you've replied an email previously and you go back to provide a second reply, it is going to be addressed back to you. I don't know if this makes any sense, but that was what happened. I have not received a reply from her since then, but I believe she would have noticed that maybe that is the reason why she has decided I just can't be bothered with this one. Her head is just not there. So, but this is what happened after that. I took some time to reflect and bring myself up to speed around how I was actually tracking at work. So I sat down and I reflected, and a few other things came to me, a few recollections came to me. I recalled that not too long ago, it would have been within the past fortnight as well, I caught myself just before I sent off an email doing something that would have been a bigger ball drop than just misnaming a student. Okay? I was sending an email to a student and then I realized that I had included sensitive information about another student in this email I was sending off to a different student. Thankfully, I caught myself on that occasion and I was able to correct my mistake before sending off that email, but that would have been a bigger ball drop, like I said. Privacy and confidentiality are big things in social work practice. And these are areas where you really, really want to be careful around. You don't want to be found breaching privacy and confidentiality. I made that realization once again that I was at risk of burning out. I have felt that way for a while now. When it comes around February, when we start delivering the workshops, I have always followed a practice previously to take a break right before or right after the workshops. Right before, to prepare myself physically, mentally, emotionally, because I know it's going to be an onslaught. Or if I'm not able to do that, then I take a break right after. This time around, I did neither. And I also thankfully have had a chat to my manager about this, just telling them that I was feeling pretty overwhelmed. When I sat down and I thought about the lead up to that day, okay, I felt like there had been a few indicators, to show that it was time for me to pay attention to certain things. I felt like the lights had been flashing. What I did after that, and maybe this is where I am going to talk about how I cope when things like this happen at work. I need another sip of water. Ooh, nice. So this is how I cope. Number one, what I did was I called my manager. Remember, she had already had a chat to me about this report that the student made. You need to be able to and willing to make amends, like take responsibility for your mistakes and make amends. If you've been practicing self-awareness and constant reflection in your practice, then it's like a muscle. The more you work it, the bigger it becomes and the easier it becomes. You also need to acknowledge that the client is within their rights to feel angry about your actions, okay? But in saying that, extend some compassion to yourself as well. Practice constant self-reflection. Let it be part of your practice. Some people keep a reflective journal. Try and see if that works for you. It's a really great and effective way to keep a finger on the pulse, so to speak, so that you know when things are going out of whack. And then seek help. I called my manager up after that and told her that I needed to have a word. I needed to debrief with her. I shared my recollections with her, all the other occasions that I felt like I had come very close to making serious mistakes, and even the times when I had made mistakes. I shared all of that with her, and we sat down there and talked a little bit about what might be the cause, what kind of supports I was needing going forward, what I thought could be done about it. We just had that chat and it was really supportive and I appreciated it. We spoke a bit about having a break, which is good because I already have leave planned very soon. One other thing it does when you open up about your struggles is that you actually show yourself to be someone who is self-aware. Again, we're talking about self-awareness here, right? This can be a difficult conversation to have because when you think about how we see ourselves, the identity we build around our work and even our personal lives, how we want other people to see us, especially when it comes to work, we usually fall into these very unhealthy habits of thinking that the only way to show how efficient we are is to continue to take on work, okay, and never say no, because saying no or trying to be honest about the areas that we struggle might come across as being weak, might come across as being inefficient. Another way to manage your well-being at work would be to engage in regular supervision. And this one is interesting because you know what? I also realized that I have not had my normal monthly supervision in the past 2 months. I didn't have it in February and now March is gone. Now, you don't want to leave it until things get to this point before you talk about it. Please schedule regular supervision. My supervisor is external and I feel like that's an arrangement that works really well for me because this is a neutral person that I can speak to, okay? This is a neutral person that I can process things with and I feel more comfortable speaking to them because they are separated from my work. Self-care. Now, when I talk about self-care in this particular context, I don't only mean that activity you do at the end of the day. No, that's not what I am referring to. I am not saying that that's not important, but self-care in practice goes beyond soaking in a bathtub at the end of the day or at the end of a particularly hard day and having a glass of wine. Those are great ways to relax and unwind at the end of the day. But what I'm saying is that self-care should not be a reaction to your day. Rather, let it be something that you build into your day-to-day practice. And some of the ways to do that will go back to some of what I have already spoken about. Be aware of your limits, be aware of your capacity, okay, and try to work within that. You're going to be encouraged to build your capacity and increase your capacity in your practice. But while that is going on, you want to make sure that you are working within the confines of your current capacity. That's another way to build self-care into your practice. Put boundaries in place, talk to people, delegate, ask for help, be transparent, right? Yes, and that's it. Now, I am aware that this video has gone on for too long, and I actually wanted to talk about the other experience of flunking my interview, but I feel at this point we should do that in another video. Stick around for, let's say, the part 2 of this video, and it will be dropping soon. Thank you so much for the community that we're building on here. Now, if you've got any questions at all out of anything I discussed in this video, please put it in the comment section, and I'll see you again soon. Stay safe and bye-bye.